Good evening, Learning Journey. We want to welcome you to another support group. Lee and I, it is March. We have made it all the way almost to the springtime, right, Lee? Good evening, Lee.
That's right. Good evening. Good evening, Learning Journey. It's good to be here one more time. Yes, we are almost into spring. Got a few more days, but this weather here in my home state doesn't signify that it's almost close, but we're just hoping that it get a little bit warmer. We have some warm days and some days that haven't been so warm, but it's coming. It's coming, and I just welcome it so much.
Yes. And the most important thing, the days are longer. The
Yes,
winter it could be cold and it gets dark early, and that could bring on some depression and your thought
it
process.
does.
So when you look outside and you can see the sunshine and it lasts longer, it kind of energizes you in the spring.
It
So we just
does.
thank God for the change of the seasons, that it's not
Mhm.
always so dark and cold and looming
Mhm.
around.
Yes.
Last time we talked about different things that you're going through. We try to break off and give you information as well. So we'll talk about mental health, but we also thought that it was important to discuss voting, because this is the year of voting. Who you vote for, we have nothing to do with that. We're not here to try to change your thoughts or anything. But what we are here to do is tell you that there are some people that are incarcerated, or, you know, many felons who have served sentences, including parole and probation, and have paid
Mhm.
all their fines, restitution, and fees, can vote in Florida elections. So, this is how you're supporting your loved one at this time. You can go to Google University and find out if your loved one is eligible to still vote. So
That's right.
remember, every state is different, and states set the rules on how felony convictions affect the voting and the residents' ability to vote. So, Lee, did you have any information that you would like to share on voting and the
Um,
incarceration and how that affects the rights of those who can vote?
well, I had just a little bit, Lynn.
Okay.
Each election cycle, thousands of eligible voters are effectively disenfranchised
Mhm.
because they sit in a jail cell. Americans detained before trial, they are allowed to vote, but a lot of times they don't know that they're still eligible to vote because sometimes we share information that's not exactly true. We think that it's true, but we'll say, "Oh, you can't vote now. You've been arrested. You've been incarcerated." But all of that's not exactly true. Um, when you are waiting for trial, sitting in jail, waiting to go to trial, or so, your rights are still there. You can certainly go on and vote. And
Mhm.
also, when you have a misdemeanor, you are still
Yes.
able to vote. And that's important to remember that also. Now, your felons, as you mentioned, Len, when you are been convicted of a felony, even after you get out of that home from the incarceration, the felon still has to go through probation, parole, any fines before they are eligible to vote. And that's so important to remember
Mhm.
because I read somewhere where a gentleman voted. He was released, he had been a felon. However, he was still going through parole or probation and he voted. Well, guess what? He was arrested
Wow.
because he had not gone through the entire process or so. And Satan's out there, they're looking for you in every place that you go. Bottom line is, I want to say to your caregivers, there are so many of our loved ones that are incarcerated that are not eligible for whatever reason. There's so many roadblocks and stipulations between the jails and the prisons or so that keep us away from voting and stuff. They don't get the mail in there. The IDs are not correct.
Mhm.
Um, the one they use most of all, we don't have enough personnel, but
Mm.
and they're eligible to vote. They're trying to vote. They want to vote and stuff. and sometimes they still can't. So we that are out here and able to and stuff, that vote that we're counting or we're able to go out, cast that vote, vote for whomever you feel is capable of doing the things that you want them to do. Do it for yourself, do it for your loved one that's incarcerated that will not have that right or can't get to that right or so. But it's so important that we get out and vote for ourselves and for everybody else that are depending on us.
It is. It is so true because this is, in order to get laws changed, you have to vote. You need to vote for your state officials, your county officials, your commissioners. These are the most important things that you vote in. And some people don't realize, well, I voted in the last what election? Just for the president? No. Your state representatives. That's where it's very important, especially your governors and things of that nature. Remember, every state is different in their laws and their regulations. For instance, some
Right.
states automatically restore voting rights. Did you know that? Did you know in
Yes.
Washington, D.C., they never revoked the voting rights of individuals convicted of a felony? See, people don't know this unless you look it up. You
Hmm.
know, the sentence time was reduced in the federal prisons from 85% of the sentence, and now they do 65%. That was passed for the federal, but it wasn't passed for the state. So you vote on those things. Your state representatives help you. But if you don't vote for your state representatives, where's your help coming from? These are
That's right.
things where we just want to explain to you that voting is very important. Female and male, we have been giving those rights, and you don't want those rights taken away. So exercise those rights if you can. Also, incarcerated people from Maine, Vermont, and Washington, D.C. can vote from prison.
That's right.
You don't know these things unless you look it up. So that's why we like to give you the mental health, but we also want to give you informative information. It is very important if you have a incarcerated loved one in those states to look up the rules. Less than 1% of the total prison population in 2021, the incarcerated groups were less than 1%. So federal prisoners registered to vote in these places may vote while incarcerated, even if the federal prison is in a different state. See, these are the things that we found so interesting, and we're wondering how many loved ones knew this, because these are important facts. Prisoners in state run prisons outside of these states and Washington, D.C., may still request an absentee ballot if their address before incarceration was in one of those jurisdictions. That was news to me. Now, I don't know if they have changed that from now. But you know what? It is very important to check it out because
Yes.
the registration process, is going to cut off soon. And they've made it a little harder for people to vote. But that's okay. We're still going to exercise that right that's been given to us to vote. Remember, in 23 states, those with felony convictions automatically regain the right to vote when they are released from prison. These are things that are very, very important. This means formerly incarcerated people can vote while serving probation or while on parole, as Lee, you said. This is very important information. And you can find this. This is according to the Justice Department. If you go on their website, it will show you all of this information. And I found it very intriguing that they can request an absentee ballot.
That's
And
right.
this is important. Also, loved ones, register to vote. This is how laws and bills get passed and changes made by voting. I know you're, well, I don't want this one, I don't want that one. Cast your vote, okay? For who you think is the best one, okay? You look at the two, you weigh it. You have to look at making laws change, changing these laws, and it is very important. How many states automatically restore voting rights after probation or parole? In 14 states, people formerly incarcerated for felonies automatically regain the right to vote after completing their entire sentence, including probation or parole. Some states, payments of certain court appointed fines and fees, like in Florida, they can
Mhm.
vote, but they have to pay everything that is due, and that way they can do that. Can felons in these states get their voting rights restored? 6 states. Delaware, listen to this because we're on here live. So there are people from all over New York, Washington.
That's right.
So
Mhm.
in these states, 6 states: Delaware, Florida, Iowa, Kentucky, Mississippi, Wyoming, Wyoming automatically restore voting rights for certain crimes, such as nonviolent felonies. The specific crimes disqualifying former prisoners from automatic voting rights or restoration varies from state to state, but most commonly includes homicide, sexual crimes, and certain thefts. These are things that are very important to know. You know what your loved one, what crime they're facing. So this is very important for, you to realize and know that the process of regaining voting rights occurs after release from prison, okay? But in some states, as we said, there are certain jurisdictions that they're able to vote. Many people, many other people in jail are serving time for minor misdemeanor offenses, which means they can still vote in 44 states and the District of Columbia. Did you know that? I'm going to read that again. Many other people in jail are serving time for a minor misdemeanor offense, which means they can still vote in 44 states and the District of Columbia. As
That's huge.
again, rules vary by state. So it's best for
That's
people to
right.
find out eligibility. And this is something that you loved ones, you can find this out. Their vote could make a difference.
That's right.
Their vote could make a difference. Remember, when they go in, they're stripped of all dignity and everything. But this is something that could also be used to process, and make them feel more human. Because remember, they lose their humanity. And this is something to rebuild them, that their vote makes a difference. So remember that to help them. Someone who is incarcerated cannot go to their local election office, remember that, to register to vote. So they depend on alternatives provided by the jail. Remember, incarcerated individuals need to access crucial information, but it's hard. It's hard for them to access that information on where to vote,
That's right.
eligibility, election day. They need to access the forms, and they don't have the internet, some of them, in order to do that. Or the internet is down, or they're not allowed to go, access is denied. Find this information out for your loved one. Be that make you proceed for them. It's going to make a difference. Also, election officials and prison administrators routinely fail to provide this access. Wow.
Yes,
One
they
survey
do.
found that 30% of election officials in Ohio did not know if those serving misdemeanor sentences could still vote. And I said before, in 44 states, misdemeanors can still vote.
Hmm.
So this is important for you to, you know, give your loved one that information. And incarcerated people,
Important.
they're often left to fend for themselves, to find
Hmm.
information they need to exercise their freedom to vote. Without internet access, voters in jail must rely on the prison's administration to provide paper registration forms or vote by mail applications, which can get stuck in bureaucratic delays or discarded or uninformed prison staff. So if they're uninformed, we're informing you now. We're
That's
informing
right.
you now that it can be done. Lee, would you like to comment on that?
Well, one thing, I agree with everything that you said, of course. One thing that I was thinking as you were speaking, and some of the primaries and stuff too, on those ballots are the sheriff. So
Yes.
that's important also that inmates can vote if everything is straightened in those elections, if they are encouraged and they're able to vote, they might even be voting for someone right in there that would affect them right there, almost next door to them and stuff. They can vote for the sheriff or not vote for a sheriff that might want them to vote for. So it's important to keep
Exactly.
that in mind. Also, um, we have to encourage them because also when they're incarcerated, sometimes voting might not be the first thing on their mind. So we got to keep them encouraged and let them know that it is important and that is a right, as Lynn said, that you still have. So you want them to exercise that right.
Hmm.
Lynn and I talk a lot and stuff, and we were talking about going from enslavement to mass incarceration. Any rights that we still have, our people have fought so hard for the right to vote. Let's exercise that vote. Any of it that hasn't been stripped from us and stuff. Let's get out there and do that. I know right here in my home state, they have a organization that are they're going out and they say women, we're turning my state blue. So they're women in blue and men too. So they're out there pushing to get everyone out to vote and encouraging them to vote too. So we certainly want them to also include our incarcerated loved ones that still have that right to vote. We want them to reach them too. So if you're out there, certainly we want you to hear us, and we want to help in any way that we possibly can so that we
Yeah.
can get our loved ones out here to vote that may very well be incarcerated. But we have to talk the talk and walk the walk. And for
Exactly.
some of them
Exactly.
that can't get out there, we have to be that voice. So we got to make sure we get out there and vote if they can't, or if they can, and that vote might not get to where it needs to be so that it can be counted.
Yes.
Sorry, Lynn.
We hear so many stories of them being treated inhumanely. And that's
Hmm.
what I meant before, so many stories of, you know, they're not treated fairly and properly and treated inhumanely. So this is a boost of pride for them. My vote counted. I had the opportunity to exercise my right and to vote. So this is something that is very important that you encourage that loved one to do that. Also, you know, like I said before, serving the time doesn't mean that you have lost the right to vote. It
Hmm.
just makes it so much harder. But there are some programs out there that are keep working to protect and expand the freedom to vote, for every voter and to every voter, and including those who are serving time, because our democracy works best when every voter can make their voice heard. And that is so important. In Florida, voters approved an amendment to their state constitution in 2018 that lets people who have completed their sentence vote again, excluding those convicted of murder or felony sex offenses. But, um, the Republican controlled state legislator passed a law requiring ex felons, as I said before, to pay all outstanding court fees before they're allowed to vote. And that sometimes is blocking possibly hundreds of thousands of Floridians who can't afford the fees from voting. So, you know what? This is a great time now to start paying those fees so they're able to vote. And maybe that law could be changed. That law could be changed. Okay. So, when they come out, it's kind of hard to get that job and to keep those fees paid. And sometimes they're minimal fees. So let's work on that now, and that could help. There are agencies out there that you can go on Google and just see if there are any agencies out there that will help in the struggle to pay those fees. Um, Also, visit the Florida Division of Elections, and that will give you an explanation in plain language on the latest voting laws. And, that is one thing that you want to do. And it will give you, owing your cost of restitution. You may be able to convert your financial obligations to community service or
That's
to
right.
have restitution forgiven. Look at student
Hmm.
loans. Student loans were forgiven. So isn't it a
Right.
try to get that forgiven as well? And that is so important. And if you do not qualify to have your rights restored because you committed a homicide or sexual assault, you can ask for executive clemency. The Office of Executive Clemency reviews requests on a case by case basis, and you must fulfill all other terms of your sentence. So,
Mm-hmm.
again, there are ways around the voting laws. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't know, you don't go. So, this time, you're going to learn. Remember, education. You're going to educate yourself so you can
Mm-hmm.
educate your loved one on this. It's very important when you do the research on the different laws that were passed. And some laws, it's important that you look per month and see what laws are on the ballot. It is
Right, because they
so
change.
important because you'll be surprised how laws are scheduled. You're like, well, I didn't know about this. Stay
Mm-hmm.
abreast of it. Stay
Mm-hmm.
abreast of these things. Get with your county commissioners and your state representatives. These are the most important things. This needs to change. That needs to change. Who are we? We're the loved ones that makes the change for our loved ones. We have to stay focused. We have to stay on top. And it's hard. Yes, it's hard.
It
But
is.
we have to make the change in order for the system to change for them. We're fighting daily for that. And it's so important. So we do it because we're in this with you. And as this is where the learning journey comes in. The healing journey is the mental health support, but the learning journey is the information piece. You don't know if what you don't know. So now you have some knowledge around voting and go to your state voting, the state division of elections, and it will have
Mm-hmm.
everything on there that you need. And that is important. And one of our people put down, one of our uh, people put down, voting is such an important topic that you are covering tonight, that our Black people were denied the rights for decades. And now that we have the rights to vote, this makes your topic extremely important and relevant to voting. For every single vote counts. Thank you. Yes, every single vote counts. As Lee said, you know, you don't know, we didn't know some of these things, but Lee thought it was very important since we're in a voting year. She said, Lynn, let's cover voting. I'm like, okay, Lee, you know. And when you think about it, there's so much importance around voting as I was researching and looking at Florida itself. There's so much there. I had no idea that, in some states that they could still vote inside. Wow. It's important to know.
It is.
So, knowledge is power. So, tonight, this is the knowledge that we're giving you so you can be powerful and help
Mm-hmm.
your loved one with this. Lee, would you like to comment on anything?
I want to comment on the fact that you're very nicely saying things in reference to Florida, and Florida's a very tough state.
It
And
is.
unfortunately, a lot of people watch Florida and they'll say, well, Florida is not said that. I understand that they can't do this and stuff. So it must be nationwide as worldwide. It's not. As Lynn said, you got to read and know for yourself, educate yourself by reading and finding out what applies to your particular state. Florida is very, very tough. It's a fight every day and stuff, but we have to learn and be smart so that we can get out there and vote and do the things that are important to us that will make a difference. Even if you
Yes.
feel somewhere within yourself that it doesn't, it will make a difference. Every bit
Yes.
of it counts. It's
Yes, it
important. We got to do it. We got to
yeah,
do
we
it.
do. So we just, had a short show tonight, information, informative. We want to keep you abreast of what's going on out there. Again, state by state, it's different. And if you look at the states that I mentioned, if you're in one of those states, look at it for your loved ones. Get them the necessary
Hmm.
documents they need. Find agencies for restitution. It can be erased. These are the things you don't know. So when you start searching out there, you can find out the proper information that is for your state. and that will help. Another comment, it's not the time to turn the other way. Ignorance is costly. We have to be a part of the
Yes, it
change.
is.
Effort, exclamation point. Yes, we do. We have to be a part of the change. And the change is going to come because there needs to be an overhaul. Social justice. People are fighting for social justice, the death penalty, and all of those things. That is important. But guess who makes those laws? Your local government, your state government. These are the things that you need to vote in every election. Exercise your right.
Every.
Every election counts. Well, I don't know. I don't want this one and that one. Then pick the lesser of the two evils. That's what you have to do. You got to vote. Don't give up that right that our ancestors fought for so long.
Yes, they did.
If they make it hard, we're harder. Life is tough, but we're tougher. You get tough and you still make that difference. Remember that. It is very, very important. Anything else, any further comments, Lee, for you?
Um, I think we kind of covered a good bit
Yeah.
of information and stuff in reference to the different states and the importance of voting and getting out there to make sure that we're in it. And if we're going to do it because our ancestors fought so hard. We do it for ourselves. We do it for our loved ones that are incarcerated that may or may not have that right to do it and may want to. Let's at least make our vote count to help them or so. Talk to them about it if they are incarcerated or arrested and see so that they will need do either have a right or do not. And if they do, they have to question and make sure that they push to get the facilities available there in the jailhouse, or they get the personnel there to take them out so that they can get that vote cast.
Gotcha. The absentee ballots. All right. That seems to be it tonight. We wanted to bring that
Mhm.
information piece to you. Knowledge is power. And voting, we just want to make sure that every color, yellow, black, red, brown, everybody votes. It is very, very important. So until we see you next time, we wish that you're going to have a very happy, healthy Easter season. And remember the reason for it. And it's not the Easter
Yes.
bunny, as everything is turned around, but it is heroes with all power. And remember, God is still in control of it all. Remember that. He holds the world in his hand. Man is not powerful, God is. So remember that. And until we see you again, have a happy Easter season. He is risen. Bye.